Hey, I'm Jim Johnson, your host here with Contractor Radio, and I want to thank you for taking the time today to listen to our show. And our show is all about you, helping you get control of your business so you can grow your business and find that personal and financial freedom you're after. So, hang on tight, episode's about to start. Hey everybody, it's Jim Johnson here with this week's episode of Contractor Radio, our broadcast for contractors to help them with their strategy, help them with their game to kind of get an edge, hopefully, on their market. And today we have somebody very near and dear to my heart. I posted on Facebook yesterday, I said, this is the best sales rep that I ever hired. And there's a little story to it that I recruited him for like a year and a half. It took a year and a half. I told him he was going to be good at it. He wanted to keep working at, I think it was at Pizza Hut. And so he wanted to keep working at Pizza Hut. And so he did that summer, but I kept working on him. We played basketball together and finally got him into the game. So everybody, this is Dan Walrack, or Wally. Welcome aboard, Dan. Glad to have you today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Humble introduction you gave me there.
He's a rock star, and we're going to find out today some of the reasons why he is a rock star. But Dan, just kind of tell us the story. Like, how'd you get into this? I kind of led into it a little bit, but bring us up to speed with where you are today. 20 years now? Is that right?
21.
21 years, man. And most of that as a sales guy, right? Most of that as a sales guy.
Yeah, I 21 years of doing sales, and I mean, even when I owned my own company, it was sales. I sold. So how I started off doing this is, like Jim said, I was in college, got my degree in physical education, health and fitness. I got a couple minors in coaching and adapted PE and outdoor rec. And Jim gave me the old line for about a year and a half. You'd be really good at this. You'd be really good at this. And I'm like, it sounds too good to be true. You can't make money doing that. Nobody's going to do that. I don't sell vacuums. That's not my niche. Right. It's like, no, man, you'd be really good at this. I promise. So I think it was my graduation, was it? Didn't you finally hook me in? Or we went out to dinner.
Yeah.
That's what I know the place. I don't know. Remember the name.
Copper Kettle?
Copper Kettle. There you go.
Right.
So we went out to dinner, and finally I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'll do it for the summer. Whatever it is for the summer. I got nothing going on. I had a teaching and coaching gig all lined up, ready to go. And then we went out to Oshkosh, I believe. And I gave it the summer, and I made more in, 3-4 months than I would have made an entire year of teaching at a 22-year-old kid. That was a pretty good deal. So then I pretty much was hooked after that. Nobody ever told me that up north here that what you sell, sometimes you have to bank over for spring. So I had all these jobs left over for spring that was money in the bank starting off in the spring. So
that's how we suck you in, man. That's how
they got you on it. So then I had to cancel my teaching thing, and 21 years later, here I am still doing the same thing, and 20 years of straight million-plus producer. So.
Well, I think you kind of got both of it in. You got this life that is pretty cool, but you still do a lot of coaching and stuff, right? Like you're heavily involved with your kids' football, baseball.
I do. I run the booster program up here for football, and I coach traveling baseball, and I'm the 7th and 8th grade head football coach up here.
See?
So I do a lot of work.
Best of both worlds, right? Like I got to make some money.
Yeah, but it wasn't like that at the beginning, though. You know that.
What do all those other coaches that work there at the school or teachers think about like the situation?
They have a good time. They know that I'm passionate. I'm aggressive. I suppose I take that into work too. I'm passionate and aggressive about work too, and see a lot of things come and go in this business. It's like it's a soap opera. You know what I mean? But
it's cool that you bring that up. Like, what are the things like 21 years ago? What's changed from then to?
Oh goodness. Well, in the sales part of it, I mean, all these new guys now are just they take a lot of stuff for granted. We were out there plugging the streets. We were out there, 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. You're sitting on a tailgate, and you had to generate your own jobs. You know what I mean? Nowadays, jobs get generated for you. They tell you where to go. They put you in the spot. And back then, we had to go look for leaves on the ground. We had to look for dents on car hoods. I mean, we were driving around everywhere trying to find it. But once you found it, guess what? You kept your mouth shut because that's where you sat. And you worked and you worked and you worked and you made it. So
Yeah, it was kind of all about owning that neighborhood, right?
Oh yeah, that's why you're there at 7 a.m.
That was some of the first things we taught is like, don't like scatter yourself all over a city. Find that neighborhood, work that neighborhood, own that neighborhood, make that neighborhood your office. And you were really good at that. And one of the reasons why I recruited you is your ability to make friends easily. Like you're just an naturally outgoing. Were you always that way as a kid too, or did that come on?
I've always been outgoing. I just relate with people, and it doesn't matter what that person's, into or whatever. You just relate with them. I mean, as a salesperson, the first thing you should do as a salesperson driving up to a person's house is if they got the garage door open, look inside. I think you taught me this. Look, if they've got a fishing pole hanging up, talk fishing. If they've got Packer colors, talk Packers. If they got whatever, make them feel comfortable with you as a person before you start trying to go into a niche on what you do. You know what I mean? Because it is what it is. You start talking to people and make them feel comfortable. That person is going to be more open to talking to you. So,
yeah, it's one of the mistakes I think a lot of salespeople make is they get right into it really fast. Hey, we're going around, we're meeting homeowners, I'm working with so-and-so over here. I'm here doing free inspections. Would you like me to do one for you? And they skip that part about being likable, being somebody that's creating themselves as another human being, maybe even their next door neighbor, possibly a friend, before they start talking about why they're there. And that's always been one of those things. Like I try to look at each person as a possible new friend, a new relationship. I'm still friends with my very first person I ever sold, Tom Wicks. I still talk to that guy to this day. He's a uber Viking fan. And if you remember back in the day, I had a yellow truck with a green and white stripe right down the middle of it. It was the Packer truck. And I drove up to all those houses in Minneapolis that were all Vikings fans with that truck. Talk about a conversation starter. It was like, man, it instantly started a conversation. And we'd talk football for 5 or 10 minutes before we'd ever even get into talking about what we were there for. Well, I'm here. I might as well go ahead and inspect your roof, right? Yeah, sounds good. Go ahead, man. And I don't know if people really look at that rapport building as importantly as what it is. It comes down to human behavior. If expectations aren't set, like we set that from the beginning, our expectation was we were going to get after it. We're going to go, we're going to work, and we're going to be hard at it every day. And if people weren't like that with us, they didn't stay very long with it. You'd see me scoot them out the door. And so when you set that type of expectation, and you also do that, like you saw me in there every day, I worked my butt off, and you set that example, then people tend to do it because it was set from the beginning. But when we don't set a standard like that or an example like that, we tend to see some of that type of stuff that guys don't take it as seriously as they probably should. And I think a little bit of that is because they don't understand the opportunity that's in front of them and how fleeting it really is. Like you get a big storm and it all seems so easy, but if you don't hammer it, and I mean hammer, and build that network and build those connections, build that giant network of people through that opportunity, and you just take what comes to you, take what's easy, well, when it dries up a little bit, you're going to be the first one that has to leave because you aren't making any money. And I see that as a big issue today. This idea of having a scheduled time to do the things you need to do to create that knowledge.
I list these 3 pillars because among all these 3 pillars, I personally believe that sales is unique in the massive impact that sales, or lack thereof, has on the trajectory of the business. If sales are going well and sales are up and sales are high, we have revenue to grow the company, to reinvest, to build and to get bigger. As we see sales decrease and we see sales go down or stay at a certain level, the company will follow suit in its own growth and expansion. I think that because of this massive impact that sales, essentially revenue, has on what happens to a business, I also believe that sales uniquely impacts the culture of the company's overall culture. And I've noticed a few different types of sales cultures that exist. Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify things, but I do tend to see two primary sales cultures that exist out there in the world. I've been a part of some of these sales cultures. You guys are probably going to recognize some of these sales cultures. I've named these sales cultures. I have one that we call the prima donna sales culture, and then I've got the one that we call the monkey sales culture. I'm going to start with the one I see most first. The most common sales culture that I see is the prima donna sales culture. Now, the prima donna sales culture, I think, is primarily born out of almost an over attention to sales. Sometimes out of just plain fear. The idea that sales needs to have all of the focus, all of the resources, and everybody needs to bend around sales, because if we upset sales in one way or another, right, we might upset the revenue, and then upset revenue upsets everybody and everything in the company, right? Well, oftentimes this leads to a fear of actually holding salespeople accountable, and oftentimes they tend to become prima donnas, right? Some things that mark a prima donna sales culture is that oftentimes the people in the sales culture tend to push everybody else around. Oftentimes prima donna salespeople don't treat others very well. If you've been in a company that has this kind of culture and you've worked on the administration or the production or the support end of some kind, you might have been on the short end of some of that treatment in the past. Oftentimes these salespeople get what they want. When push comes to shove, either the thing that you need has to go or the thing that they need has to go. And the thing that you need is the one that's got to go because sales is so important, right? The other marker of a prima donna sales culture is that the salespeople run the show. They run the place. Oftentimes they'll run roughshod right over the owner. Once again, I think primarily out of fear that if we upset this group of people, we upset the revenue, and the revenue is everything, right? So you may or may not be identifying with this particular culture. There's another culture out there that I think is a little bit less prevalent is in the construction industry, but it still does exist. I call this the monkey sales culture. Now, what I think causes a monkey sales culture is when you have a product that is so good, it is so tight, it's so clean, it is so desirable that the product sells itself, or at least in the mind of the people who made it. And the product sells itself so strong that we don't really need salespeople. We just need monkeys who can pick up a phone and explain the product. They can go on an appointment and explain the product. And if they do that, then people are just going to throw their money at our monkey. Now, some of the markers of a monkey sales culture are that people in a monkey sales culture are not often viewed as the talent or a talent in the business. The talented people are all the people who create the product and who are delivering the product, but this person is just a monkey who takes cash from people. And so as a result of not being viewed as talented, they're also not viewed as being very valuable, right? They're easily replaceable is one of the ways that they're seen. As a result of that, salespeople in a monkey sales culture often tend to see their incentive structures or their compensation packages messed with a lot, right? Because we can't overpay the monkeys because after all, they're monkeys. These people are also typically seen as a necessary evil, because the truly talented people are developing the product and delivering the product, and they don't have time to pick up a phone and tell somebody about the product and have cash thrown at them, hence the need for the monkeys. Now, these two different sales cultures are on either end of a spectrum, and your company might be somewhere on that spectrum in that space. But no doubt, if you've been in sales or in business for any amount of time, you've probably seen or experienced one or the other types of these cultures. This is where I'd like to introduce you to the concept of the hero sales culture. The hero sales culture is marked by salespeople who are willing to make sacrifices. They're willing to sacrifice their ego. They're willing to sacrifice their time. They're willing to sacrifice oftentimes their resources, and oftentimes they're willing to sacrifice their money. I know at this particular company, for the most part, the salespeople were the first people through the front door every single day. And generally, they were the last ones to leave. That did not go unnoticed amongst the rest of the company, because they would come in and they knew that's Nathan's car, that's so-and-so's car, that's so-and-so's car. We know those are the sales guys. They're already here. And then when they're on their way out, they can still see those cars in the parking lot as well. Now, I know some of you don't work at a central office, right? But you get the point that I'm getting at. Hero salespeople are also willing to stand in the gap. If somebody's upset, somebody's angry, you're willing to be the lightning rod, you're willing to be the punching bag. Because if you're willing to do that and you're willing to take those hits in order to keep the peace and keep a healthy relationship through departments in the company, between customers and the other team members in the business, then people will see that and they'll recognize that you're concerned about them making sure that they can do their job. And the hero salespeople are honored to be in that position. They're honored and humbled to be in the position of having everybody else's success and weight laying on their shoulders. Now, you might be asking yourself, how do I get this kind of sales culture? Like I said before, it's not particularly easy, but I would like to give you some of the ingredients that go into doing this. As per usual with Contractor Coach Pro, everything starts and ends with leadership. Okay, so we're going to start with leadership. It is leadership's job, and I'm talking to you, owners, leaders, managers, all of you guys. It is your job to communicate to your salespeople, especially the new ones, how difficult and what goes into the jobs of the other silos in our business. How hard it is to work in production. Oftentimes being outside in the heat with no AC, right? Not driving around in a truck. Oftentimes how difficult it is to deal with customers who don't communicate back to you. How difficult it is for missed scheduling. Or man, when it rains and all the jobs have to get pushed back. Or when your salesperson doesn't communicate to you all the things that you need to do your job correctly and you have to figure out how to make this thing work. How difficult it is to be in the administrative or to be on the production side of the business. Leadership, you have got to communicate that to your salespeople so that your salespeople have an understanding and an appreciation of what these people do. Likewise, leadership also needs to communicate to the other departments how difficult it is to be a salesperson. It really isn't that easy. Most of us salespeople hear no more often than we hear yes. Most of us salespeople deal with people constantly questioning our motives. Even though we have the customer's best interest at heart, the customer thinks we may just be trying to make a buck off of them. Sometimes salespeople go through dry spells. Sometimes things are great. Sometimes things are just horrible. And so leadership, it's your job to communicate to production and administration the importance of sales, the fact that without sales and revenue, none of the rest of us have a job, and how difficult their job actually is. So that's the number one thing for leadership. The number two thing for leadership is we need to demonstrate and be an example of the advocacy. I've talked about being the punching rat, being the punching bag, being the lightning rod, standing in the gap. You as leaders need to demonstrate that. We do not allow our departments to go to war with one another. If one department has a problem with the other, we stand in the gap, we take that hit, we take responsibility. And then our salespeople are able to see us modeling that and the fact that we're strong, we can handle it, and we move through the challenges. And because we're the ones who are able to take the lightning, be the lightning rod, then the rest of our departments have an easier time working peaceably amongst each other. That's leadership. We need to start there. All right, number two, salespeople. Number one thing, advocacy. Punching bag, lightning rod, you get the picture. Now, this primarily happens for you between your customers and the company. If the customer's upset, take that hit. Literally, take that hit. If the company is upset, take that hit and protect the customer. I, at one point, I had one of my support people come up to me, and they were laughing, and they said that they said that they were talking with one of their regular customers that they deal with in their particular role. And they said that they wanted to make sure that they were extra polite to that support person because they never wanted to hear from an angry Nathan for treating one of their support people unkindly.
We have a true superstar in the roofing industry with us today. One of the most magnetic personalities that I've met. A lot of respect for him. There is a little disclaimer here. He has been one of our clients, so keep that in mind as we go through and talk about this. But Heath Hicks, welcome aboard today from AVCO Roofing, fastest growing roofing contractor in the nation, 2019 or 18?
18, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So welcome aboard to Contractor Radio. Glad to have you. That's the thing about you. You are a very contemplative type person. You tend to spend a lot of time alone. Quiet, and really thinking about things. What do you think that's brought to the game for you that maybe other contractors might be missing out
on? Well, understanding is the beginning of wisdom. And so taking time out of your life to really think through everything and be slow, digest it all, process it all. I would say understanding and knowing your own heart is probably the biggest challenge you could ever have in life. And you can't do that if you don't sit still, So sitting still allows me to do that. It allows me to find the wisdom and strategy in a situation that you really are not going to find that level of that without doing that. I, by nature, enjoy doing that. I know some people don't, but I started out doing that, from a young age. I really like meditation and so that kind of thing, I guess, is natural for me. It came from living in a very, very tumultuous and abusive household. And so I had to find moments of peace outside of all that stuff. And so, I can remember being 8 or 9 or 10 and going out as far away as I could get in a reasonable amount of time and climbing up in a tree and just sitting there, just trying to relax and be peaceful, So that started pretty young. Of course, I went to a good church too that really talked a lot about, reading the Bible and praying and spending some time alone, working through that stuff too. So from a young age, I guess, like I said, it was kind of natural for me, but it has allowed me to gain understanding, which produces wisdom. And there's no shortcut for that part, I don't think. You can't read somebody else's book and get wise. You may gain knowledge, but you're not going to gain wisdom that way. You got to figure out how to take it apart piece by piece, apply it to your own life, make the changes that you need to make internally and in yourself first. And then that'll bear fruit into the life around you and into the lives of people around you. But you're not just going to read a book and get wise.
I could not agree more. I've read a lot of books, more books than most.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of knowledge, but the wisdom comes from taking that knowledge and knowing when to use it and how to use it, not necessarily for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others. It brings back so much in reward that you're not even looking for. It's just it's super cool how that works. My grandfather was the wisest man I know, and just on so simple. It's really, if you look at life, it really is. Wisdom is actually a fairly simple thing, it seems to me, in most cases. You talk about.
I want to interject. Can I interject real quick before someone out there listening gets this idea that I'm some great Christian? I am not. I am a piss poor Christian. I hesitate to even use that term at this point in my life because of all the connotations it brings. I do have my own faith. I do try to walk it out, but I am not good at it. So I'm not necessarily somebody that's trying to tell people to follow me, but I'm just sharing with you what's worked in my life so far.
Yeah, it's actually super interesting that you say that, because it's not the way I would perceive you. I perceive that you're more faithful, stronger Christian than I am.
Well, I know my own heart, and I know the stuff I do that nobody knows about, and I'm just not a great example of everything. So I don't want anybody to get that impression, because I know a lot of people out in social media land or business success land are trying to draw people to themselves to get followers. That's not my motivation at all. So I'm doing this because you asked me to, and I want to help you. And I like sharing with people, but
And I appreciate that. It's not, I don't post a lot of stuff all over Facebook and things like that. It's not why I do what I do. I genuinely want to see people succeed. I hope this podcast gives people like a conversation today. This is some enlightenment on things, that it's not all about fast, go do it. You know, I hate the word grind. I really hate that. Like, if it's a grind, stop doing it. That sounds terrible.
Right.
It just doesn't sound like it's enjoyment at all. And why even own a business or run a business if you're not going to enjoy it? I liked what you said earlier too about the time to slow down and think. I always think of it like this: think slow, act fast. And so I take time, get the thoughts right, get the action right, get what we're going to do, and then when I decide, then it's bam, bam, bam. Let's go. Let's get after it.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much like that. Yeah.
So you do some quiet time, some meditating, some thinking, and that kind of stuff. What else do you do for personal growth and I mean, you went to India and spent like, what was it, a month or something? It was crazy.
Yeah. So last year I turned 40 and I did a 6-week sabbatical, and I went around the world. Started off in England, drove through England, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, just kind of road tripping it by myself, just thinking, you know, didn't interact with a ton of people, just lots and lots and lots of alone time, thinking and driving. Then I went to India. I was in India for, I think, 21 days. I was at a yoga and meditation retreat way up in the Himalayas, North India, close to Tibet and Nepal and all that stuff. Then after that, I went to Myanmar. You know, a lot of people will be like, Myanmar, where's that? I didn't even know that was a place. I went to Myanmar. It was a very spiritual experience for me, really beautiful. Then I went to Japan after that for some food and some fun. A week there, I wanted to see the Rugby World Cup, watch the New Zealand All Blacks play. I was pretty excited. I got to see that in person. So that was very cool experience. And for me, I just really needed it because I hadn't had the chance and didn't prioritize and even sacrificed a lot of my own personal time over the last 3 years, I would say, building the company, traveling a lot, working a lot. I didn't sacrifice much family time. I stayed faithful with that, but everything else got sacrificed. You know, my own workout routine, my health, my diet. I sacrificed a lot to build a company, you know, because I was just driven by everyone else's success. And about a year and a half in, I was ready to slow down, you know, and kind of take it easy. But as I slowed down, I felt this like giant pack of people behind me just thrusting me forward because they were ready to succeed now. They were ready to get their stuff done and have their adventure in life. And by nature, we were all connected together and I had to be a part of it. So I got driven farther than I would have wanted to go, I think. And I really needed some recovery, mentally, spiritually.
So taking that amount of time, I mean, 6 weeks, that's a long time to take off from working, right?
Yeah.
How did that benefit AVCO and the catch-all and just your businesses?
Sure. I would say there's a couple layers of business. One is, a couple layers of benefit. One is all the people that I had been raising up, which I had been working very diligently to raise people up to take my place in everything that I was doing. It gave them time to look ahead and know that I wasn't going to be around and I didn't want any phone calls. You know, if the building was on fire, don't call me because I can't put it out from India. You know, if somebody died, don't call me because it's too late. You know, like I didn't want to hear from anybody. I did have a couple scheduled meetings where they did have some contact, but it gave them a chance to really run. And I'm a firm believer that if someone is going to be as good as you or better than you, then they have to make their own mistakes. They have to understand the weight of leadership and decision-making. And the best way to learn that is by screwing it up. You got to fix it, you know? And so I don't shield my people from making mistakes. I don't jump in and intervene every time that I can see a mistake coming. I may give them some counsel or advice on it, and then I let them do it. Because the truth is it may succeed. And I didn't see it because it wasn't the way I would do it. But if it fails, that's the lesson they need to learn. You know, if I want people to be as good at decision-making as myself or someone else that I really respect, the only way you get there is by making mistakes. You know, hopefully it's in a sheltered environment where they don't have as big of a fallout. And hopefully you get some counsel ahead of time and you don't have to make all of them, but you got to make some. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to that. So I give my people the freedom to make those mistakes. And when they do, I don't get upset. If they make them 3 times, maybe I start getting upset, But, so that was one of the benefits. They got a chance to really run on their own and make their own mistakes. And I'm sure there were mistakes they made that they fixed and lived through that I didn't even hear about. They just learned from it and moved on.
Those are my favorite ones, by the way. Those are my favorite mistakes that they make, that they were so little of an impact that I didn't even hear about them.
Right.
It means they handled them in some shape, form, or fashion. They were handled to a point to where it wasn't important enough to let me know about it. I hate interrupting, but this thing is something that every contractor should have. It's Company Cam. It is the one piece of software every home service contractor should use to document their jobs. Every picture you ever take is associated to the address you took it. It's like Instagram for every project that you have. Give a link to the homeowner and share it to them while you're doing your inspection and win more sales. If you want to find out more about Company Cam, check the description below. Save a few bucks by following our link. Today's conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about strategy. And are you playing chess, checkers, or Russian roulette? Now, we see a lot of times when we're working with our contractors that it's more the Russian roulette than it is the chess. And what I mean by that is it's pretty shoot from the hip when it comes to strategy. And so in order to actually understand what strategy is, we need to define that a little bit. And what most people think of as strategy, they're really talking about tactics. So if your strategy is to hire a bunch of salespeople, well, that's actually a tactic. It's not a strategy. If you're looking to create a great sales presentation, that's a tactic. It's not a strategy. Think of it in terms of battle. We'll take Desert Storm, for example. There was a lot of tactics that were used, a certain number of planes and a certain number of soldiers, a certain number of tanks, artillery, munitions, all kinds of stuff. But the strategy was a thing that nobody saw until after it had happened. And that strategy was shock and awe. We're going to go hard, and we're going to go hard, and we're going to go hard fast. And it's going to be immense. It's going to be jaw-dropping, which brought this feeling of shock and awe, and this is just so much more power than we can possibly withstand. We give up. And it happened really fast. And those tactics helped execute that strategy, but that's really the key to strategy. This idea that you're after something that nobody else really sees how all of those tactics work together to achieve your overall strategy. And this is what we help contractors with all the time here at Contractor Coach Pro, but I want to make it clear on those differences between what strategy is and what tactics are. And so as you're developing what you're going to do as a contractor, we as owners are thinking about this all the time. We really need to think about, what are we really after? What's our purpose, our goal? What are we trying to achieve? And then how are we going to do that? That's kind of the tactics of things. And so let's say that your strategy would be along the lines of just mass putting people out there. Well, you're going to need to have a really great hiring process that's going to bring in a lot of people, probably plan for a lot of turnover, but you're going to have a lot of people on the street. And we see that strategy used quite often. Sometimes that strategy works out well, sometimes not so well. If instead you were like, hey, I don't know if I want all that chaos and all of that, those problems and questions and everything else, I want to be a little bit more pinpoint about things. You could apply the strategy. We call it the ninja strategy. I'm going to go after the best of the best. So I have to separate myself as being the best of the best. And that means setting up your business in a way that when somebody walks in the door, they go, wow, I really want to be a part of what's going on here. And so this strategy of getting great talent who can then execute all these other cool tactics that I have is paramount to your success with that particular strategy. And how much do you sit and think about that? How much do you take time to really think about, what are we really trying to do? One of the strategies that we really coach a lot with our contractors is this strategic thing of growing leaders, growing more leaders who can then take on some of those duties that we wear as hats all the time. And what this concept is creating capacity. And so your strategic approach is to create capacity for you as an owner to position yourself to work on your business instead of in it. And so what do we have to do that? If that's our strategy, that we're going to get great people, hopefully people even better than I am at doing whatever it is that I do, what do we have to do to make that happen? And so we have to have a great foundation. We have to have a good working environment for them to come into. We have to have systems and processes, those type of things that all have to be kind of done up front in order to get those great people that could possibly be great leaders. I may want to incorporate some assessments to ensure that the people that we're getting are solid, great people that have the potential to be great leaders. And then what happens when we start to see them stepping up and being leaders? And what does that look like? What tactics are we going to use? Are we going to just touch a guy on the shoulder and say, hey, man, that is a great job. How about you be sales manager this week? And not really have much of a plan for that? Or are we going to be a little bit more strategic about that and bring them up through a leadership training program, starting to empower them with smaller tasks and seeing how they do with those tasks, coaching them through those tasks, and allowing them to improve? There's a little equation out there, and I use this quite often whenever I'm speaking, but I really want to talk about it today because today is so much about how do we create this capacity. And there's really two sides of it. One is growing great leaders. And so if I can grow other great leaders to take on the tasks I do, so I can start taking off a hat and putting it on somebody else, it affords me more time. So that's what I'm trying to get, is more time whenever I create this capacity. And so the other side of that is, what can I automate? What can I get off of my shoulders that I could automate, whether it's using a CRM or some kind of documentation tool like a company cam? How much of this stuff can we automate? Can we use technology to do that? Can we use people to do that? Can we use systems and processes to do that? So those are the things we have to sit down and kind of think about before we run off half-cocked and shoot from the hip and just, hey, we're going to do $10 million and we're going to hire a bunch of people to do it. This concept of shooting from the hip leads us to this Russian roulette, and sometimes there's a bullet in there and sometimes there's not. We're hoping there's not. We're hoping we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and put us in a position of not being successful with our business. So there's a lot of gurus out there these days that talk about taking massive action. I hear this all the time. I'm not going to call them out because I do believe in it. I think massive action is important. I think it's something that any kind of a plan without action is wasted time. I wasted a bunch of time creating a plan. But on the other hand, taking massive action without developing a plan is a recipe for success. And I'm not talking about writing, a 100-page business plan. I'm talking about, what are we after strategically? Are we strategically after building leaders? Are we strategically after building the best roof or siding or landscaping or whatever it is that we do as a contractor? Is it about us being involved in the community? That's our strategy, that we're going to go after the community. Or maybe we're going to go after insurance adjusters. What is that core thing, the strategic intent that we're after? And if we're after that, then how do we get there? And those would be those tactics that we would incorporate. That's awesome. Like 2 years ago, kind of dabbling in it, just felt like it was a challenge and wanted to do something with it. And then here this last year, you went, hey, I'm going to kind of press the gas a little bit. And so there had to be a lot of obstacles there, right? You're talking to customers, learning sales process, solving problems. How did you get all that stuff for you?
So as far as obstacles, like as far as homeowners, it was like you said earlier. I was thinking, did they take me seriously? Some girl from not even from America coming to my house, trying to sell me something. But I had my confidence that, again, that if I know what I'm talking about, people will believe me. And if I really like what I'm saying, that, they will believe me. That's why the obstacle became, not really an obstacle. So that was that's how I felt about that part. What was it? The second question?
So the second part of it was like, there's kind of a process to sales. You know, it's something that is a skill you learn. That, you know, there's a warm up. There's a creating the problem and solution, providing the options, and then actually closing people and asking for the sale. Just kind of in brevity, you know, where did you learn that type of information, and do you follow some type of format?
So 2 years ago, Ronald he found this great coach, and he bought the training, right? And he had the sessions, personal sessions, and I was there behind the laptop, just listening and making notes. And you know, we got all this system. The system is perfect. You know, honestly, the system that you taught us is like perfect. And the person who taught me sales, it was Ronald. Actually, he is a really, really, really great salesperson. I had an opportunity to be with him a couple times on his sales, and I saw how he does it, how he's confident about what he's talking about, and I just realized that if you have the right tools and the right knowledge, you can basically just do it. That's how I felt. I had everything, you know. I had the secret recipe. I had the tools. I have I don't want to share it with everybody, but you know what I'm talking about. So everything. And you just need to add that confidence and be focused and do it all over again. And I believe that's how you do it.
Did you practice a little bit before you went out the first time?
Oh yeah, we role play a lot at the office. You know, we role play every day. And actually right now we are training a new salesperson, and I was training him a little bit, and I just saw him doing that, you know, and I feel so proud that right now I can pass my knowledge to someone else.
That's super cool. That is, it gives me goosebumps to even think about that. Like, you know, you got some knowledge from Ron helping you. Ron is, you're right, he is a great salesperson. He's also a great owner. He sees potential. He really works hard to build people, and I think that's really cool. And then to pass that knowledge along to somebody else, that's super cool. Anna, this has been an amazing interview today. I don't know if you know how amazing it really is, but because there's a lot of people out there, they let things get in their way, and I think they have far less obstacles than you do. A lot of them are guys. A lot of them are born here in America. A lot of them have the communication skills. A lot of them have the sales training and background. A lot of them have the knowledge of the industry, but they just don't open the door. They don't get out of their vehicle. They don't create the activity. And that obstacle is in their head more than it is anywhere else. And so to see you do what you've done, I hope it inspires others that are watching this to go, you know what? If she has all those obstacles in her way and she's willing to go fight tooth and nail, claw her way through and be persistent by really just saying, I got to get the experience and I got to get the confidence. Anybody really and truthfully can do this. Do you suggest other young ladies to get into this whole roofing and construction world?
So this is my next, this is not my next, but current task. So I started to do more social media, like you maybe noticed. So, and the reason why is just because I want to share with not only the girls, but more people like my age and other people, and probably mostly the girls, that, you know, this is a cool place to be, because a lot of people, they don't think about, you know, especially like a woman, like young woman, they will, you know, probably will not think about going to work for the roofing company. But I truly believe that this is a great opportunity, and you can make a lot of money, and you can, you know, just, this is a great place to be. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just showing my own experience in social media, and actually had a lot of, you know, people already reaching out to me, just asking questions. They're curious, you know, because people usually don't think about this. And that this is my goal, just to share with the world that, you know, it is a great opportunity right here.
Well, you're absolutely an inspiration to those young people out there, because I see so many people graduating from college and they don't have jobs. They're struggling. Then you throw this pandemic thing on top of it, and we are fortunately a business that's a required business. Essential is the word they use, and so there's opportunity here. And I think the young people out there that at least get curious and start to see what it's all about, I think there's a lot of potential for them. And you are going to be one of those people that I think inspire a lot of them to do so.
There's one of our values in BTA. It's called embrace the journey, and sticking to those core values while you make really big decisions is another big thing to do. And it's hard to do because we came up with that value 5 years ago and we didn't know everything that was going to face us with, but it's faced us with some pretty crazy things, and it seems to work out long-term, but short-term, it's always the harder decision to make. Right. So
very similar for everything passes muster according to our purpose, like what we're all about, which ours is helping people believe. I mean, that's what it really comes down to, believing in themselves and us, and hopefully that there's a higher power out there. That's the reason we're doing all this stuff in the first place. And that's really at our core, and everything has to pass that muster, right? Like, is this new thing we're going to do, is that empowering somebody to believe? No, not really. So we're not going to do that. And it also has to pass those core values, and our core values are to love, serve, and care. They're pretty simple. Is that loving our customer? Is that caring for our customer? Is that serving our customer? If it doesn't meet that criteria, it just doesn't get done. And it puts it more towards them than us, which is what we're really after. Is it needs to be about those guys. Zig Ziglar, I think, is the one that said it, that the more people you can help achieve their dreams, he'll achieve his. Same thing here. We do that, we'll be just fine. So it's cool that you went right to those core values as that thing that was the qualifier, right? Yeah. We did the same thing. We kept all of our people. It was a thing where we talked about it, like, hey, what do we do in this thing? And I'm not the type to give up or any of that kind of stuff. I'm like, hey, all these contractors probably use a bunch of help. So we stepped up and turned our efforts there. And fortunately, in our industry, it hasn't been hit as hard as, I don't know what I'd be doing if I was coaching a bunch of restaurants. Like, what would I got
a big case of whiplash. Yeah. It was like, this is going to be terrible. Never mind. This is actually really good for everybody.
Yeah, those are really bad.
We have a friend who does what we do in restaurants, and we have another one who just started it in hospitality. And it was not the same picture for sure. We're very blessed to be in the industry we're in. So,
yeah. Some of the ideas that came out of this, like we're construction people, we know the trades. Like, what could you do? I always like throw caution on this statement, but I see whenever there's catastrophe, there's always opportunity, right? And so all these people had to go home to work. They don't have privacy. They don't have any of that kind of stuff. They're trying to figure it out. They're sitting on their bed in their bedroom with a lap stand and stuff like that, trying to be a part of their business, and the field just wasn't the same. I'm like, man, wouldn't it be super cool if we, like, as contractors said, hey, we got this new offering, turn your extra bedroom into an office, and provide that type of service where both people benefit. We actually had a couple of contractors take it on, and they're doing really well. It was a good move on their part. So let's talk about working with a competition.
Sure.
Here we are sitting here talking about this stuff, sharing ideas and things like that. And it's so weird. Not for you, because I know this has been.
You got to come to Canada, Jim. We're way more socialist.
The Canada nice thing. I don't know what it is, but here in America, it's like, no, man, we're playing poker all the time, and I might tell you, and I might be bluffing them. And like, you never know when somebody's giving you the right information or not. That changed for me quite a few years ago, about 15 to be exact. But what I found from that, and you tell me if it's any different from you, is those competitors. Now, as a contractor, I had respect for quite a few of my competitors. Also didn't like them that much, but it was only because they were good.
Yeah.
And Cedar Valley, those guys were aggressive, strong, sold a lot, did a lot of business, and I got to know the guy over time, and we actually all started working towards helping each other do better. And Frank Manella, super cool guy, brilliant, just super smart too, great marketer. And he had a talent that I didn't have. And, on my side of things, we kind of had the sales thing, and we really had a process and a system for that. And I found value because we made each other better. And it's happened in various other companies that I've worked with, that it raises the bar, right? Like that bar raises for those ones working together. And the ones that aren't willing to work together, that bar keeps going up higher and higher and higher. And they're trying to figure out how to at least grab hold of it or even jump over it. And there's more power in numbers, especially when they're aligned values-wise, and they bring skills to the table, I guess. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it's exactly. And it actually does. It all starts with values. Like you can't say, hey, we have 300 companies. You can't say, hey, guys, we're going to have everybody share each other's financials and everybody's deepest secrets, and we'll bring anybody to the party, right? There's a no-go zone if you do that. But by taking the time to understand, hey, all these people are very open-minded. All of them have nothing but the best intentions for the industry, for themselves, for their staff, for their customer. They actually care, right? Like there's certain things we look for when we bring people in, probably similar to what you look for. And when you start to create a safe space where that's who is all around you, and you trust and know that we're continuing to do that, it's a pretty relieving fact. It's like, well, so everybody thinks the same as me, like more or less, like values are fairly aligned. Yeah, cool. I wonder what people make on average on gross profit margins on construction sites in my industry. Well, let me tell you about 10 of them, and let me get you to have a chat with them, or let's get 3 of you in a group together every 2 weeks and go over the fine details of all your financials, right? And suddenly, what used to be a mystery that you would Google online and like try and scrimp and get the bit of information you can to win the next guy is just public information for a group of people that all help each other. And I seen this the first time when we first started in Vancouver. We had 3 of the top landscaping companies in North Vancouver all working in BTA. And at first I was like, is this weird for you guys? Like you guys are all bidding against each other. And they said, well, Danny, there's like another 20 landscaping companies around here that aren't honestly that good and have pretty malpractice. And the 3 of us are actually able to like set a precedent in the industry now. Like we're actually able to hold something that we're more powerful together. And they're like, as long as it's us working together, like we're pretty comfortable actually. You bring in, XYZ person over there that does nothing but like cheat everybody. Like we would not be comfortable with that, but they trust in our ability to bring the right people through. So I think having the right core values having people that you work with that have the same core values as you is huge. And I think also realizing that this world, this thing we call business, is much larger than any of us. As much as we're all like, I'm 20 million a year, I'm 30 million a year, we're all pretty small potatoes. We're all pretty small potatoes in the grand scheme of large organizations and large businesses. And there's more work out there than most of us are ever going to be able to grab. And again, stubborn pride and ego, you're like, well, I want to control Texas. It should all be mine. I should own it. It's like, dude, sorry to tell you, it's like, it's a big state. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of money, and you'll always have a competitor that'll be as good, if not better than you. That's okay. You might as well work with them, and together you guys can own something versus trying to do it all alone. So
this industry, especially in roofing, but there's a lot of others, painting and concrete work and those types of things. There's not a lot of regulation, right? There's not this. No. It's a self-regulation type of thing, and it all comes down to your morals, values, ethics for you and your business internally. But when you start to see that bar getting raised around you, it has an impact on you. You start thinking, hey, maybe I should change maybe some of the things I'm doing and the way I'm going about doing things. I think social media has done that a lot for just the process itself. It's very transparent now. You can't be too hard of a closer jackass person anymore because you're going to get blown up on Facebook. And so it's a different tact. It's a different approach nowadays in sales than it was even just 10 years ago. I started doing this 7 years ago, and it's been cool to watch. Like you said, each one of the conferences we go to, the contractors get a little better. They get a little more organized. They get a little more systematic. They get a little more professional. And that's really what it's about for us. Is I would love to say it's all about you guys that are contractors. And really and truly, I would love to say that, but it's not for us at least. What it is for us is it's about the consumer. That consumer having somebody they can trust to work on their home, perform the project for what they said it was going to be, and deliver what they said they were going to deliver. That's called professionalism. If we can bring professionalism to an unregulated industry through coaching and consulting, we can have an impact, and it has been. It's been cool to see.
Well,
Thank you for joining us at Contractor Radio once again. If you ever have any questions or anything about Contractor Radio podcast, Contractor Coach Pro, any of our resources, or any of the guests that we have on Contractor Radio, don't hesitate to reach out to us at our website, contractorcoachpro.com. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Or if you just like to get a hold of me directly, I am Coach at contractorcoachpro.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, you're still here? Well, you must have thought it was great. Make sure to like and subscribe to Contractor Radio and never miss an episode, because we're here to help you get better at what you do.